Elijah's prophecy is repeating. This prophecy is happening soon. Centuries ago, a man stood alone against a corrupt kingdom, a prophet, a challenge. And then, fire fell from heaven. Now, the same prophecy is unfolding again. What if I told you that this fire isn't just about the past, but a warning for the future? Could we be about to witness the return of fire from heaven? By the end of this video, you'll see the shocking signs that prove this prophecy will unfold before our eyes. The Bible is a history book unlike any other available in any public library. Its history starts with the Earth's creation and ends with the world's end. This is the only history book that covers such a broad range of events on planet Earth, partially because no one was present at the beginning to witness and document it, and therefore no one can write the beginning of our world authoritatively. We are the only people in the world who know how it will all end. That is unique. The Lord did not reveal the future to His followers to satisfy their curiosity. He showed it to prepare them so that they would not be surprised when it arrived, and that they would not misinterpret it. Be grateful that Jesus was so forthright in sharing the future for us. People ask, are we in the end times? However, the Bible talks of the last days, and we have been in those last days for 2,000 years. The last days, they started at Pentecost, where the first prophecy of the last days was fulfilled. Every Christian generation should live to be ready for the Lord's return. So, 81% of all Bible prophecies have already come true, and some of those prophecies were made centuries before the case. It doesn't take much confidence to believe that the remaining 19% will happen as well. That's a very high score. The Bible has proved 100% right for every prediction that could have been fulfilled by now. Of the rest, most of them are concerned with the actual return of Jesus and what follows after that. How many of these predictions remain to come true before Jesus returns? The answer is about 20. And we watching to see those happen first, before we look for the Lord's return. Jesus told us to watch and pray. What do we watch? We cannot stand still and watch the clouds to wait for Him to appear. That is not what He meant. He meant, keep an eye on what's going on in the world and see what signs I gave you to help you prepare. Signals are the signs. Could Elijah's warning be repeating in our time? And most importantly, what if this event happens sooner than anyone expects, and the world is caught completely off guard? Are we ready for what's coming? Then the fire of the Lord fell and consumed the burnt offering, the wood, the stones, and the dust, and it licked up the water that was in the trench. Could the same forces that opposed Elijah be rising again right now? Keep watching, because soon we'll uncover the eerie parallels between Elijah's time and today. Elijah's prophecy was not just for his time, it was a warning for the final days. Let's go back to the most dramatic showdown in biblical history, a time when evil ruled and idolatry filled the land. But what if history is repeating, and we are about to see an even greater confrontation? Elijah, the lone prophet of God, against 450 prophets of Baal. The stakes? What happens when the world is forced to choose God or deception? Who was the true God? For hours, the false prophets chanted and cut themselves, but their God did nothing. And then, Elijah stepped forward. He prayed a simple prayer, and then fire fell from heaven. It was a moment of judgment, a moment of truth, a moment that the world would never forget. Now, you might be thinking, why does Elijah's prophecy matter right now? Because what comes next will reveal just how close we are to a repeat of this event. Why are so many people saying that his warning is repeating in our time? Elijah went before the people and said, "How long will you waver between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal is God, follow him." Do you see the pattern? Elijah's world was filled with spiritual confusion. False prophets were leading people away from the truth. Idolatry was everywhere, and people were turning from God. Are we already seeing the first steps of this prophecy unfolding? And now, look at the world today. And Elijah's challenge? It's the same challenge we face right now. Just like in Elijah's time, false prophets are leading millions astray. Many are embracing a false version of Christianity. But here's where it gets really concerning. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 3. "Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first." What if this isn't just a warning? What if it's already started? And what if we are witnessing the greatest spiritual betrayal in history? Could the greatest deception in history be happening right now, and most people don't even realize it? The Bible warns about a great falling away before the return of Jesus. And guess what? It's already happening. Just like in Elijah's time, people are being pulled in two directions. What happens to those who make the wrong choice? Will they follow God, or will they follow the world? The prophets of Baal? They were the spiritual leaders of Elijah's time. And today, we have a new form of prophets of Baal. False religious leaders who mix truth with deception. Global influencers calling for unity while pushing dangerous agendas. Tech moguls, politicians, and media figures shaping the way people think, replacing biblical truth with human ideology. Revelation 13, verse 8. "And all who dwell on the earth will worship the beast, whose names have not been written in the book of life." Elijah's time was filled with idolatry, and today, we see it everywhere. People worship celebrities. People worship power. People worship technology. And soon, the world will worship a leader who deceives them all. But here's where it gets chilling. Fire from heaven was a sign of judgment in Elijah's day. And the Bible warns it will happen again. What if judgment isn't a distant event, but something that could strike at any moment? How many warnings do we have left? Has the countdown to judgment already begun? We're about to expose the undeniable proof that something major is on the horizon. This is why Elijah's prophecy matters today, because it's happening again. The question is, what side will you be on? This is what Revelation warns us about. Who is behind this fire? What if Elijah himself is set to return? Elijah's prophecy doesn't end with him. The Bible speaks of two mysterious figures in the final days, two prophets who will stand before the world, and they will call down fire from heaven once more. Revelation 11, verse 3 to 5. "And I will give power unto my two witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,263 days, clothed in sackcloth. And if anyone wants to harm them, fire proceeds from their mouth and devours their enemies." Did you catch that? Fire proceeding from their mouths. And what if the moment we see this fire, it's already too late to turn back? Fire that consumes their enemies. This isn't just symbolic fire. This is real fire. But here's the chilling part. Is there proof in Scripture that Elijah's mission isn't over? Many believe that Elijah himself will return, the same prophet who called down fire on Mount Carmel. will do it again in the final days. But here's where it gets really intense. The two witnesses are not just ordinary men. They will have supernatural power. They will prophesy for 1,260 days, and they will be unstoppable until their mission is complete. These have power to shut heaven, that it rain not in the days of their prophecy. Wait a minute. Who else stopped the rain for years? Who else confronted an evil government? Who else called fire from heaven? Elijah. The parallels are too strong to ignore. Elijah called down fire. The two witnesses will call down fire. Elijah stopped the rain. The two witnesses will stop the rain. But their story doesn't end there. After 1,260 days, they will be murdered. Their bodies will lie in the streets of Jerusalem for 3.5 days, and the world will celebrate their deaths. Revelation 11, verse 9 to 10. And they of the people and kindreds and tongues and nations shall see their dead bodies 3.5 days, and shall not suffer their dead bodies to be put in graves. And they that dwell upon the earth shall rejoice over them. Think about that for a second. What kind of world would celebrate the death of God's messengers? And what does that tell us about how close we are to the final days? The world will watch their deaths. The world will rejoice. Could this be a prophecy of global media? Imagine the headlines. The greatest threat to global unity is finally gone. World leaders celebrate the death of two dangerous prophets. Peace at last. But then, something happens. What if their deaths are only the beginning of something far greater? Something no one expects. But what if the celebration turns to sheer terror overnight? Revelation 11, verse 11. And after 3.5 days, the Spirit of life from God entered into them, and they stood upon their feet, and great fear fell upon them which saw them. What if the greatest proof of God's power is something the world refuses to believe until it happens before their eyes? What could be so shocking that it makes the entire world tremble? The world will watch in horror as these two prophets rise from the dead, as they stand to their feet once more, as they ascend to heaven before the eyes of the nations. What if the answer is far closer than we ever imagined? Before the real fire from God comes, there will be a counterfeit, a deceptive sign, and the world will fall for it. And he performs great signs, so that he even makes fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. And he deceives those who dwell on the earth by those signs which he was granted to do in the sight of the beast. Is there undeniable proof that this deception is already taking shape? The Bible could not be more clear. Before Jesus returns, before God's true fire of judgment comes down, there will be a fake fire, and the world will believe it. But here's the shocking part. What if the person responsible for this deception is already in power? Revelation tells us exactly who will bring down this false fire. And no, it's not the Antichrist himself. Could this be the figure the Bible has warned us about for centuries? It's the false prophet. Revelation chapter 13, verse 11. Then I saw another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and spoke like a dragon. This beast is the false prophet, a powerful religious leader who will deceive the world into following the Antichrist. What if the biggest sign of deception isn't something hidden, but something we've already accepted as normal? Could the entire world be manipulated by a sign from the sky? And how will he convince them? By making fire fall from the sky. By manipulating the masses into believing the Antichrist is their savior. What happens when people are so desperate for hope that they accept the wrong savior? The world is desperate for something supernatural, and the false prophet will give it to them. Revelation tells us that in the last days there will be one world religion, a false faith that will unite all people under the Antichrist's rule, under the false prophet's deception. What if the next major event isn't just a disaster, but a carefully planned step toward global control? Could the next global crisis be the perfect excuse to unleash this deception? And this deception will begin with signs, like fire from heaven. So, how close are we to seeing fire from heaven? The world is in chaos. Deception is growing. False signs and wonders are increasing. Could we be living in the return of the days of Elijah? But there's one more fire the Bible speaks of. The final judgment. Fire. The day when God himself will bring fire upon the earth. But the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night. The heavens will pass away with a great noise, and the elements will melt with fervent heat. This fire won't be an illusion. It won't be from the Antichrist. It won't be from technology. What happens when the true fire from heaven finally falls? What if the real fire doesn't come as a warning, but as the final act of judgment? This will be the fire of the Lord, and it will be unstoppable. Now, there are three primary theories on the identity of the two witnesses in Revelation. The first theory is Moses and Elijah. Because John makes specific references to the miracles that the witnesses would accomplish, many people believe that Moses and Elijah could be the two witnesses. Moses witnessed more miracles than Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob combined, with several miracles occurring one after another as God interceded on behalf of his people. You remember the 10 plagues of Egypt, right? In Exodus 7:20, Moses lifted his staff, and the Nile River turned into blood. Plagues of frogs, locusts, and darkness followed, bringing an empire to its knees. Now, compare that to Revelation 11, verse 6. They have power to turn the waters into blood, and to strike the earth with every kind of plague as often as they want. This isn't a coincidence. The two witnesses will call down plagues just like Moses did in Egypt. And just like Pharaoh resisted Moses, the world will resist these two messengers. But in the end, God's power will always win. The witnesses will have the power to convert water into blood, replicating one of Moses' most famous miracles. And the witnesses will have the power to destroy their enemies with fire, which corresponds to an event in Elijah's and Moses' life. But why do the two witnesses have the same miracles as Elijah and Moses? Could it be because these two prophets actually returned in the end times? At the transfiguration of Jesus in Matthew 17:3, who appeared alongside him? Moses and Elijah. They weren't just figures of the past. They were standing there, alive, talking with Jesus about his coming mission. Some believe this is proof that Moses and Elijah are the two witnesses, returning to finish their work. Others say the two witnesses will be entirely new figures, but will be given the same prophetic authority as these ancient men of God. People also theorize that the two witnesses are Enoch and Elijah. Because of the extraordinary events surrounding each of their deaths, Enoch and Elijah are often considered potential candidates for the roles of the two witnesses. From what we understand, God has only ever brought two people directly to heaven without their first having to go through the process of dying. The passage in Hebrews 9:27, which states that it is destined for all men to die once, is cited by supporters of this perspective. It would appear that the fact that Enoch and Elijah have not yet been put to death qualifies them for the role of the two witnesses, who will both be put to death once they have completed their respective tasks. Since neither Enoch nor Elijah died a natural death, but were instead carried to heaven, and Hebrews 9 verse 27 states that it is appointed for men to die once, some people believe that the two witnesses must be Enoch and Elijah. They reason that since it is set for men to die once, Enoch and Elijah must return to the earth to die there. This interpretation of Hebrews 9 verse 27 is incorrect, since the verse outlines a principle rather than an absolute and unchangeable law. For example, Lazarus and others were raised from the dead and apparently died twice, yet this does not disprove Hebrews 9. Hebrews 9 verse 27 is a principle, and there are a few notable exceptions that ultimately serve to prove, rather than deny, the rule. There may be good reasons to regard Enoch and Elijah as the two witnesses, but the principle of Hebrews 9 verse 27 is not one of them. In addition, both Enoch and Elijah were prophets who pronounced God's judgment. Enoch lived before the flood, a time of great evil and corruption. He was the first to prophesy about God's coming judgment. In fact, Jude 1 tells us exactly what Enoch preached. Behold, the Lord comes with 10,000 of his holy ones to execute judgment on all and to convict all the ungodly of all their deeds of ungodliness. Doesn't that sound exactly like what the two witnesses will do? They will stand in a world full of sin and rebellion, calling people to repent before judgment falls. When Jesus comes back to earth, there will be signs that we are warned to keep an eye out for in the Bible. While Jesus was seated on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately and said, "Tell us, when will this destruction of the temple take place, and what will be the sign of your coming and of the end, completion, consummation of the age?" Jesus answered, "Be careful that no one misleads you, deceiving you and leading you into error. For many will come in my name, misusing it, and appropriating the strength of the name which belongs to me, saying, 'I am the Christ, the Messiah, the Anointed,' and they will mislead many." In the book of Revelation, he gives a much more detailed and comprehensive response. But here, he gives a rundown of the signs that will precede his arrival. The disciples approached Jesus secretly as he was seated on the Mount of Olives. This converse takes place in Matthew 24, 3-36. Now, in that passage, he gave 4 distinct signs of his coming. The first sign is disasters in the world, and he notes, for example, wars, famines, and earthquakes. The church, not the world, is the second sign of his coming. That takes us to the third sign of the end times, Jerusalem's distress. Then Jesus says that the fourth sign of his coming will come instantly after that. So we shall know when he is coming, and we shall be ready. There will be no risk of false prophets or messiahs when that sign comes. There will be no deception, and it will be too quick. What will happen is that all natural light will be switched off. The sun will go dark, and the stars will fall. Matthew 24, 29-31. Amplified Bible. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not provide its light, and the stars will fall from the sky, and the powers of the heavens will be shaken. And at that time the sign of the Son of Man, coming in his glory, will appear in the sky, and then all the tribes of the earth, and especially Israel, will mourn, regretting their rebellion and rejection of the Messiah. And they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory, in brilliance and splendor. And he will send his angels with a loud trumpet, and they will gather together his elect, God's chosen ones, from the four winds, from one end of the heavens to the other. There are many predictions of this through the Bible. Isaiah predicts it. The heavens will be rolled up like a carpet. All the host of heaven will be dissolved, and the skies will be rolled up like a scroll. All their hosts, the stars and the planets, will also wither away, as a leaf withers from the vine, and as a fig withers from the fig tree. The natural light will be gone, leaving only artificial light illuminating the earth. What is happening? What is going on? People may ask. This is it, Christians will exclaim. The sun, stars, and moon stop shining right before that happens. God turns off the lights of heaven to prepare for the blaze of light from the lightning that will mark his return. Then he comes on the clouds back to planet Earth, and we meet him. We are not meeting in an earthly stadium, because there isn't one large enough to accommodate such a large crowd. We'll reach him in the air, and that'll suffice. Isn't that a fantastic prospect? When you see all these things, you know he is at the gates, just about to walk through, he says. The Son of Man will come after that time of tribulation. Here, distress connects with Matthew 24:21 to point to a specific period of great tribulation. The adverbial expression immediately after emphasizes that the celestial signs and the coming of Jesus will occur after the time of great distress, just described in Matthew 24:15-28. Heavenly disturbances. The end of the age will come with great disturbances in the heavens, with darkened skies, falling stars, the disruption of the forces of this age, and finally, the coming of Jesus. At his coming, he will gather the elect from the ends of heaven. These events most likely refer to his coming at the end of the time of tribulation, which would correspond with the time of judgment of the nations. Several prophetic passages describe the cosmic disturbances that will precede and surround the glorious return of Jesus. Joel 2:10 Amplified Bible. The earth quakes before them, the heavens tremble, the sun and the moon grow dark, and the stars lose their brightness. Revelation 6:12-14. Amplified Bible. I looked when he, the Lamb, broke open the sixth seal, and there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth made of hair, and the whole moon became like blood, and the stars of the sky fell to the earth, like a fig tree shedding its late summer figs when shaken by a strong wind. The sky was split, separated from the land, and rolled up like a scroll, and every mountain and island were dislodged and moved out of their places. The sign of the Son of Man will appear in heaven. It is difficult to say exactly what this sign is. It seems to precede his return as described in Revelation 19:11. Perhaps this sign is somehow related to the incredible cosmic disturbances that will precede the great event. Revelation 19 verses 11. And I saw heaven opened, and behold, a white horse, and he who was riding it is called Faithful and True, trustworthy, loyal, incorruptible, steady, and in righteousness he judges and wages war on the rebellious nations. Aside from the signs in the skies, there are other signs of the return of the Lord. To find out more on that topic, click here.